The Zbar army has been active now for a whole week, and the verdict is in. Is it an offensive team or is it a defensive team? Let's break it down. So far, I have faced off against this team twice in GAC, and I have won both times with the same team. It is Gungans, that is my go-to. I have been using Phalanx over here alongside Jar Jar Binks. Now, before we really break this down, I do want to say that Tarpals is definitely the superior third over using the likes of Phalanx. It gives you access to a Dispel on a basic as well as a shock. You see, the majority of the work does get done by Jar Jar Binks and his ability to throw down Deathmark on the enemy Zbar. You can take Zbar out in a grand total of 30 seconds. The second time I fought this team on defense, it was a lot harder. I couldn't find an opening where I could land that Deathmark on Zbar and get a couple of attacks in before he cleansed it. This did mean that eventually in this battle I did lose the shield generator, and that resulted in me nearly being potentially in a position where I could lose. The point remains, if you can get that Deathmark on Zbar and get a couple of hits off him and take him out lickety-split, splickety-lit, this team actually does fold very quickly. But not only that, it also gives you very, very good banners. Even though in this particular environment, in my second attempt against the tougher opponent, they did hold on for a long time because I just couldn't kill that Zbar and he kept fully recovering his protection, we lose the shield generator and we still end up winning the match with maximum banners. We just needed that one opportunity to break through Zalbar's defense, and once he's gone, Darth Revan falls very quickly. If we were to take a look at GAC insights for this last week of GAC 3v3, you will notice that the whole percentage on this team is actually pretty decent. Bear in mind, this is without our opponents using a Galactic Legend on offense, which of course would completely shut down that Omicron in 3v3s. So when we look at it here, there is a couple of things that I would like to note. That Gungans team that I was using, don't take this as read, this 70%, this is without Omicrons. With it, it jumps up to about 90% with Tarpals, with Phalanx, but you'll notice that the operation with Tarpals is near 100% success rate. So that tells me that Gungans with Tarpals and Jar Jar Binks is the perfect team to counter it. There are a number of reasons why Tarpals happens to be a really good third in that Jar Jar Binks team to take out this particular Darth Revan Zalbar Omni. Partially because on his basic, he is able to dispel buffs but also apply shock for a turn. If the Zalbar has shock, he cannot gain taunt and he cannot gain retribution, which means he's not attacking out of turn, which means he's not calling Darth Revan to assist, and it means we can just control him that little bit better. It also gives us advantage for 2 turns, meaning we're guaranteed to crit. That would matter, except the enemy has got guard and we can't crit them anyway. Secondly, we have his second special, No Gibbon Up. This essentially allows us to ignore the taunt on Zalbar and place a marked on Darth Revan. I've not had the opportunity to try this out, but theoretically that does make it a little bit easier to take out Darth Revan quickly and then move back over to Zalbar. I'm not entirely sold if this is the best thing to do. I also half think that if we just put the marked on Zalbar, we'll be able to call Boss Nass to assist, which will then cause our Tarpals to assist, and he will then take out Zalbar at a quicker pace, provided he is death-marked, because that's an additional attack out of turn. You also cannot call attacks out of turn on Darth Revan. We also deal true damage to the enemy when Tarpals is attacking out of turn. So if we call in Boss Nass will then do his basic and call Tarpals in to assist, meaning we're going to be dealing 10% of our protection as true damage to Zalbar, which of course circumvents Zalbar's ability to stop crits and all that sort of good business. We ignore defense on that, and we should take him out relatively quickly. Some of the other teams that do show a little bit of promise in taking out this Darth Revan team on defense is Qui-Gon Jinn with his Omicron, although at a 65% win ratio, it's probably not something that I would throw all of my eggs into, simply because that's a pretty high chance of failure there. We've got some better choices over here, and some of these actually are quite interesting. Malgus with Malak, this one shows with Darth Revan, but down here with Basti, or alternatively with Marauder, has very good success rates as well. The interesting thing about that Darth Malgus comp is it still allows you to place your own Darth Revan, Zalbar and Omni on defense as well. Some other good teams that happen to perform very, very well are Bo-Katan Mandalore and Queen Amidala with the Poncho Bros. What you will notice about these teams is that they all happen to be very modern and recent teams for the most part. Obviously, the Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron is an old team that's been around since the dawn of time, but the rest of the hard counters, or I say hard counters, reliable counters, are relatively new teams outside of the Malgus comp, so they have hit the ground perfectly right if you ask me. Now, of course, the Zbar Omi can be two-tapped very reliably by throwing in any two-shot team. You just go in with a level 1 character and then clean up with a lot of other teams that could easily take it out in a cleanup scenario, simply because the Omicron then loses all of its viability afterwards, or at least most of it. And this is really where it gets to me. I actually feel like this team is not a defensive team at all. It can get some holds in the right areas, but in particular when you're starting to play in the higher echelons of Kyber and things like that, you need something a little bit more reliable, not something that you're hoping people don't save Gungans for, or don't use Queen Amidala for, or don't use Malgus on, or perhaps they don't even use something like Balin, or even their own Malgus, or even Bo-Katan Mandalore. There are a lot of options, I feel, for an endgame account that can deal with this on defense. So what could it take out on offense? The real big winner here has to be the Great Mothers. It's got a 100% win rate so far in Kyber 1 of using this Omi against the prototypical Great Mothers comp, and Great Mothers is still a fantastic team. The only bone of contention I have with this is that DR, Basti and Malak already do a very good job at countering the Great Mothers. This is just a more reliable version of it. It's up to you really if you feel like that is a worthwhile use of this Omicron. Personally, I think it's actually pretty good. Yes, the banners are not great because you're always going to lose mission. That is going to cost you 3 banners, but that might well be worth it for a guarantee at killing a very, very tough team. The only problem thereafter is the number of counters. They don't exactly drop off because it can't take out any Galactic Legends because the Omicron gets turned off in 3v3s, but the teams that they take out are just kind of middling at best, I would say. Taking out things like Nest with Han and Chewie, yes, it's nice, but it's not like a massive, massive problem team. It also deals relatively well with things like Saul, Luthen and Captain Rex, which again is a very, very decent team, but 77% win ratio is kind of erring on the side of a little too risky for my kind of biscuit. Now granted, the number of battles here are very thin on the ground because I feel most people have put this team on defense instead of taking it for offense, and time will tell how this will develop as things progress and we learn a few more counters. We can see it does relatively good jobs at taking out some other decent teams like a Dash L3 Vandor Chewie team, or perhaps even a Finn Zori. They're decent teams, they're just nothing stellar. Having a go at the Tuskens over here, still got a 100% success rate. It's got a little bit worse success rate against things like Saul with Kyle Katarn, but it still exists. You know, it can take out things like Captain Enoch, it can take out things like Afra. It's had some success against Balin Skull teams, but not something that I would really rely on. DTMG goes, BAM goes, Captain Rex with C-Rex and 5s, that can all fall. ADRAD and CLS have also fallen, but the problem is we're not getting a whole lot of information about how reliable these teams are. Without a really big stable of battles behind this, it's very tricky to say what their overall success rate is going to be on offense. I personally just think that the defensive side of this Omicron is a little bit of a gimmick. Now it's going to change depending on where you are in the game, how big your GP is, and who you're facing in terms of an opponent. If they do happen to have good knowledge of the game and a well-developed roster, then they're not necessarily going to fall for a Darth Revan with Zbar Omi defense, especially if they've seen you place Malgus elsewhere on the field. And of course, finally, we did see in my earlier battle that Reaver can indeed fall to this, and I'm not sure how reliable it is in terms of no cleanups, and in Kyber 1 there's only been one instance of that battle going in, and it did succeed, but I don't want to say one battle, yes, it must work. Flip heads on a coin once and you think, oh my gosh, it gets heads every time. It's a little bit too small of a sample size for us to really nail down any conclusive thoughts. But there's promise there, is what I'm trying to say. And I think if we get a little bit more time and a little bit more practice on offense, then this team could actually be a pretty good offensive viable team. When it comes to your boy Scribe, I still haven't applied this Omicron, and I probably won't for this next week, but I will consider it after that. Eventually, I think I'll have to put some more relic levels into it. R3's just not going to cut it, and I'd have to remod the team to have a good amount of speed and offense, particularly on my mission. So for now, I'm I'm still going to hold off, and I'm hoping that people are going to do some additional testing online and see how this thing plays out. If you do have any footage of what you've used offensively with this team and what you have taken out that's of significant importance, please let me know. Head over to my Discord, send me a direct message over there, and I will gladly watch the footage and hopefully release something to the masses that could be quite useful. But for now, that is going to do it for the video, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think about the Zbar army after this first week? Do you really value that investment, and do you think I should do it? Answers on a postcard down below, please. Make sure you do like the video before you leave, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I will see you all in the very next video. Peace out, and may the Force be with you.